not only do you need people who match up in all these other things, including whatever the skill that you have in the game, but you also need to find someone who's either in the fast lane or not in the fast lane. So it's sort of one more variable to have to worry about when you're trying to set up games online. The other thing is that the fact that you have a pipe as an ISP means that you have to limit its size, because if you have the fast lane that's the entire internet, you don't have a fast lane anymore. You just have what we have now, which is the internet, which is all a fast lane. So you need to limit the size of the fast lane and limit the number of people who can buy into the fast lane, not necessarily on the user side, but on the commercial side, on the provider side. And what that means is that if you are an ISP and you decide to have a gaming fast lane, that gaming fast lane may be open to all comers, if you're lucky nominally, but it probably only has 1 or 2 or 3 slots. So what you get is a situation where anybody is free to bid on those fast lane slots, but it may just happen to be that the larger gaming companies have the wherewithal and the ability to pick up those slots, which means that the problems with indie games sort of keeping up and competing with large studios gets further exacerbated. We've been going to panels for yesterday and today, and over people talk about, on one hand, how internet and digital technology has made it incredibly easy to enter into the field of video game design or video or podcasting or all these things, or blogging, but the challenge is finding a way to set yourself apart from the rest and to really kind of stand out and become noticed. And if you are stuck in the non-premium lane, then it makes it that much harder. It's one more barrier. People say, well, independent, we don't think you're as high quality, and when we play you, we notice that everything is slow and everything sort of chugs along, and nothing really works. And it'll make it that much harder for someone to pick up an indie game or a DIY game and say, oh wow, this is a absolutely great game, not a great game asterisk for an indie game, or a great game asterisk for a game that was built by one person, but just an absolutely great game, because it will be that much harder to compete on a level playing field. The last thing that you should really worry about as a gamer in terms of this fast lane, slow lane, is the freezing of innovation. And this mostly has to do with a cost of trying new things. Right now, if you are sitting at home and your friend calls you up, or he sends you an email or an IM or whatever, or you see something on Reddit, and it's this new thing, and you say, well, I don't really know what this is, I've never played it before, but I'll give it 20 minutes, I'll click on the link, I'll download the demo, I'll do whatever, and I'll play it, and it'll be either 20 minutes wasted or 20 minutes that opens up this great door to the future of my life. But that's fine, 20 minutes, my time is not worth that much for myself, and so I'll give it 20 minutes. When you have this fast lane, slow lane thing, what happens is the more innovative and interesting and different a new product is, the more likely that an ISP will say, no, you need a special new fast lane for this new thing. And as I said, the newer and more interesting it is, the more likely it will be to require a fast lane. So now, when you get a link for something, it says, oh, it'll cost you 20 minutes of your life, plus you have to pay an extra $6, $10 for the fast lane, and you'll have to call your ISP to get that fast lane before that even begins, which if your ISP is anything like mine, will cost you another 8 hours of your life just to make that happen. Whereas today you would probably click it and play it and see what it's like. Tomorrow you'll say, well, I've already got whatever I have running on my machine right now, and I don't need something new. And it just slows down the pace of innovation because it creates another barrier to building something new. And so all of these things, I think, are important for all gamers, but it is relevant to say that there are people, I know there are people here, there are people who don't feel like internet fast lane is crucial to their gaming experience, maybe because they don't play online, or they sort of download demos, but that's fine because that's going to take as long as it takes, or they're mostly tabletop gamers. But the thing to remember is that even sites that have just information about games have evolved because there's been a fast internet that is ubiquitous and open to everybody. You look at this site, and this is just a news and reviews site, a site that is fairly straightforward. No one's playing games directly on this front page of this site, but even this site has incredibly rich graphics, a lot of different things going on. This is obviously a screenshot, but if we just brought it up, there'd be things moving and videos, and it's a very sort of immersive and engaging experience. And the reason that the folks at GameSpot can do that is because they have confidence that everyone, or a critical mass of people who go to their site, have a connection that will load this page fast enough that it's worth doing something neat and interesting with it. And without that, you get the same experience. I mean, 10 years ago, there were websites that had information about games and downloads for demos, but they kind of looked like this. They were...
You guys really like Comic Sans, huh? Me too.
You know, in a lot of ways, this is the same site in terms of the nuggets of information it makes available, but it's not as rich. It has some sentimental value to many people in this room, clearly, myself included. But it's everyone loves the SimCity 2000 download. But
2000.
Marathon 2.
Let me just play Wacky Wheels I downloaded from this. But it's just not as interesting an experience. So when you think of kind of cutting edge, fast internet, yeah, think of all the great games that you play and how important all that is. But also remember just sort of the nuts and bolts pedestrian sites, in terms of sort of technologically pedestrian sites, also rely on a consistently high quality of service for all of the readers.
So speaking of pedestrian websites, even our beloved Penny Arcade can be an example of this. I mean, if you look at Penny Arcade in 2010, you will see surprisingly racy comics like this one. But also you'll see, these guys have a Twitter feed, and they have, video podcasts, and they have animations and things like that. And this is all, of course, made possible by the, fast, open, ubiquitous internet that we've been talking about. And if you look at the Penny Arcade of 10 years ago, it's a fairly crude endeavor. Obviously, the sketchy drawings are due to bandwidth limitations. But no, seriously, I mean, there's no Twitter feed, there's no animations, there's no
no Twitter.
There's no
it's just right, exactly. But it's the good and the bad. It's just a webcomic, and I think that if things had been frozen the way that they were 10 years ago, we wouldn't have all of the great stuff that we've become accustomed to. So how do we stop this, right? What are we doing to kind of keep this apocalyptic nightmare scenario from playing out? So for, I would say, about 10 years now, a few groups in Washington and a couple groups outside of Washington like ours, some of our allies in the technology community and some others, have been working really hard to enshrine net neutrality as law in this country. Basically, we believe that the internet has become an important enough platform for civic engagement and economic opportunity and healthcare and so many other things that it's just too important at this point for us to trust the companies to not screw around with this thing. So basically, our idea is that we want some kind of protection in the law to maintain the status quo, to make sure that the end-to-end principle is respected by ISPs and by internet content providers, and to make sure that the internet stays the way that it is so it can continue